Hello, my name is Vicki Molta, and this is You and Your Mental Wellness. It's February 2015. We do this show once a month, and tonight I have on my show a guest, Ken Sanger, who is a person in recovery from PTSD and bipolar 2. But there's a lot more to him than just his label. I just wanted to bring up where we met each other. We met each other through National Alliance on Mental Illness, and we were given presentations. Do you want to say something about that, about In Our Own Voice, and how you got involved in it and how you wanted to do it? And
yeah, first of all, my name is Ken, and I am a person. I think Vicki and I met about 6-7 years ago, I guess.
yeah, I think so.
We both got involved. She was involved before I was in the In Her Own Voice with NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness, and it's been a big benefit to me to do that, as far as not only volunteering to help people, but also for myself.
So, what kind of places have you spoken at? And
Well, we go to a lot of different places. We go to psych wards. We go to state colleges, nursing colleges, grad school colleges, and speak to them about our experience with mental illness and with mental health. And we're out a lot of different places, sometimes day session places where the mentally will go after they get out of the hospital. We talk to those people. I've talked to high school students, the junior high and high school students, family-to-family groups at NAMI who have people in their family that have mental illnesses. Just a lot of different people.
is there a certain group of people that you personally enjoy speaking to the most?
Well, I enjoy them all. I guess maybe the college students I like, but for different reasons. I like the psych patients. I also like the police officers. There's a what they call CIT training, which is crisis intervention training for police officers. I really enjoy that because I can get into talking about my PTSD, and there's kind of a brotherhood between soldiers and police officers, so that's another opportunity that I enjoy.
Mm-hmm. Well, if anybody's interested in being involved with In Our Own Voice, you can contact NAMI Connecticut in Hartford, namict.org, and talk to Don Fisher, and he arranges presentations around the state for people to tell their stories of dark days, coping, treatment, acceptance, and successes, hopes, and dreams. And you get a small stipend too. So just to start out with, when were you first given your first diagnosis? And
the first one was November of 1996, and that kind of progressed into June of 97 when I was given, in other words, I was diagnosed wrong to begin with, plus it's a matter of finding the right medication. So it was a process of about 6 months to finally come up with bipolar 2 as a diagnosis.
And so what was your life like at the time? I mean, were you feeling depressed, or did you have a lot of knowledge or awareness about what mental illness was?
I had no idea what mental illness was. In 95, however, my daughter had a breakdown, and she actually had a recovery and went off to college in 96 actually. And when she came home Thanksgiving of 96, at that particular time she was ill again. I still didn't know too much about mental illness, but at the same time my wife had told me that she wanted a divorce. Those two things triggered, I think, my illness, and I was just totally bewildered and didn't know where to turn or or anything else. So that was the beginning of the beginning, more or less. But those two major things were happening at the time.
Was the divorce and your daughter getting sick? Those
Yeah,
were the two things.
those
so,
are the two things.
So, what did you go to, like, go to a mental health professional and?
Well, the first thing I did, I actually became physically ill as well, and I went to my primary doctor, and he noticed my condition first. And after a physical and whatnot, he suggested the possibility of, getting some help. And at that point, I was ready to get help. I didn't know nothing about mental illness, but I was totally bottomed out on what to do about anything. And so, and I was very concerned about my daughter, who had tried to commit suicide during that period of time. And I was getting no support from anybody. So that's where I started from. I mean, I was really bottomed out.
Right, right. So you had a lot of things that were really weighing heavily on you.
Oh yeah, very much so.
Mm-hmm. And so that was that kind of the beginning of your recovery when you started?
Well, the significant part of that is that I almost immediately, upon realizing that I was ill, accepted the fact that I was ill, and still not knowing anything about it. And also at the same time, I became my own self-advocate, because I was determined to find out the whys and wherefores, and I wanted to help my daughter also. And I mean, I didn't think I could help her without helping myself. And so that was my determination at that point.
Did you have setbacks and things like that along the way?
Oh,
and
you
things
always,
that got in the way of your recovery?
You always, I mean, your recovery is continuous as far as I'm concerned. There's really no such thing as recovery in the sense that you're going back to the way
being
you
cured,
were.
Yeah.
I look at it as a renaissance, because it's a whole new life that you have to generate yourself.
Right. Someone told me that. I go to a depression bipolar support group, and a lady said, I'm not the person I was. I'm a new person, changed, and it makes. And I think that's a big part of acceptance too, is to accept that you're changed and that you might have limitations.
That's absolutely right. And the big difference between my daughter and myself is that she, being a lot younger, was not ready to accept, and she was influenced by many things that said, you're not sick, or you don't need to be on meds. And so it took her almost 10 years before she finally accepted the fact that she was ill, that she needed to stay on her meds, and that she needed to work at it, and so on and so forth, which she did. But it took her a lot longer to come to that realization than it did for me.
Right, right. Usually I've heard that mental illness happens when you're very young anyway, but it happened to you when you were older? And
well, if you really want to go back, no, I was diagnosed in 95, but I was actually ill when I came home from the war in 1970, but I didn't realize it. And there's a lot of things that go along with that. I mean, I basically put on a mask to feel accepted by everyone, including my family, and to do all the things I knew to do to be accepted and to feel equal, and so on and so forth, for 25 years. So I was ill way back in 1970, but coming to terms with it took 25 years of situations and whatnot.
so what do you think about people coming back from the war who have PTSD? Do you feel like you have a lot of understanding and empathy where they're coming from and what it's like to come back to this country? And
well, yeah, I do, and I'm still learning. I right now I'm doing research on. I have been doing research on PTSD, but I keep finding out more and more things. I'm presently studying the illness and the reaction to the illness back in the 70s. what doctors said about it, and what actually happened back then, because that gives me even more understanding of myself and how I dealt with things then and how I deal with things now. So that's very important to me, to know as much as I can
Right.
and be able to deal with things.
So you think things have gotten a lot better
No.
since 19? You don't think things have gotten better since?
No, I did for a while, but the more research I do, it's not gotten better. It's gotten different, but it's not gotten better. There's many soldiers, male and female now, that are suffering, and there are many aspects of that and many reasons for that, but I wouldn't say it was better.
I heard that 22 people commit suicide every day who've been in the wars. So that's
Well, that's not just from the war. That's both in the military service and just after. The government has to document those suicides now. That wasn't true before 1970 something. So we know more about what's going on now, but we're not. It's unbelievable that those figures are. I mean, and what bothers me is that it doesn't seem to bother a lot of people in the society. It's like you tell them something like that, and they either don't believe it, or they just can't conceive it, or whatever the problem is. I don't know, but people aren't reacting the way they might react.
So you think it really hasn't gotten that much better since 1970, the way the world kind of, I mean, like I know in some ways I think that people who fought in the wars are really praised, like American Sniper, and I don't know if you saw that movie.
Yeah, I saw that movie.
And how, you know, he was really thought of as a hero and a warrior, and he had PTSD too.
Oh, he had PTSD. The thing that bothers me is that people today, I don't think they realize the identity of a soldier. They don't know what makes up a soldier. They think a soldier has free will to do whatever he wants, and he's on the side of the political activity because he's in the service, and that's not true. It's not true at all. And so what I would say about that is we need to teach our young people, like starting around the 7th and 8th grade, we need to inform them of what war is. We need to inform them of all the facts about war, all the facts about being a soldier, in reference to not only their identity, but what's expected of them. They belong to the government. That's what they call them, GIs, government issue. And so to blame them for what the government is doing is irresponsible, in my opinion, and the people need to know that, and young people have the right to know what it means. In particular, if you listen to records trying to get people to get in the National Guard, well, that happens to be a state facility, and you can join that, and you can help firemen, you can help the community, and so on and so forth, stateside. But at the same time, you are available for the federal government to almost actually draft you into the federal system, a military system, and you could be sent overseas. That's not told to the young people, and that's very unfortunate, because they want to know what's going on, and they have a right to know what's going on.
And they're not really prepared for it.
They're not prepared for it, only by this propaganda and a lot of the movies, you know, and the video games. I mean, kids are being taught by video games that war and whatnot is just a game. It's not a game. It's for real. And I've talked to young people, and when you inform them and when you talk to them about these things, they're not stupid, okay? They recognize the issues, but they need to be informed by their parents, by the school system, by the churches or whatever, of the reality of what war really is and their part in it if they happen to go.
So just going back a little bit, when you started getting recovery after you'd hit your bottom, who helped you and what helped you in your recovery to get better on a slow rise back up to
Well, I was pretty much on my own. I mean, the doctor, the primary doctor I went to, sent me to a APR and therapy nurse, who, yes, she helped me, but becoming aware of my illness and it helped me become more aware of myself. And then, like I said, I accepted almost right away. So that was a biggie, because I became proactive in finding out the facts. I became proactive in helping my daughter as much, and we became very close. We had a bond of understanding about their illness that was very helpful for both of us. And like I said, deciding to deal directly with the problem
right,
is a biggie,
right,
a very biggie. And so overcoming the stigma I had in myself, the military stigma, the thinking that nothing could be wrong with me. What's wrong with me? Nothing. I'm like everybody else, and wanting to believe that. But overcoming the stigma of the outside world is very important. But that takes time. It takes a lot of time to do that
right.
on your own.
So you said that acceptance of yourself, of the illness, is the starting point. And would you say that a lot of people who have mental illness lack the insight into accepting their illnesses? Because it seems like there are a lot of people, especially when they're young, like you said, your daughter, when they're young, they have a hard time.
Yeah, that's true. The issue with stigma is both the inner stigma of yourself and what you've been brought up to believe, and your close surroundings, the things that you learn in school, the things you learn on TV, the things you learn in the church, whatever. Wherever you learn them builds a format of understanding. Now, all of a sudden, you become ill. People in the hospital, for instance, do not understand how they got where they're at. They have the stigma, inner stigma, then they get the outer stigma, even people close to them in their home. They don't understand. Nobody seems to understand, including the person who's ill. So this is a huge problem. Another one is like you need to be diagnosed. So when you finally go to the doctor, you get a diagnosis, but the doctor needs to hear the truth from you as far as it, and you don't really know what the truth is. So that whole scenario is very difficult to diagnose you and find a medication that is going to help you and help your brain work better. And that's what medication really does, make your brain work better. It doesn't tell you what to think. So then after you get going with that, then it's a matter of your mind taking control and telling your brain what you want to do, what you need to change. That's cognitive therapy, is changing your awareness of things. So you try to make them positive instead of negative. So this negative trend has come in there with your illness and sort of slows you down and even stops you. So that whole thing has to be turned around, and it takes time, and it's an individual thing.
It must be hard, you know. It must be hard to. How do you begin to teach someone like that to change from negative to you have to have the awareness that you're thinking negative thoughts, and that you can change those thoughts to the positive?
That's a good question. Now, right now, I just started a new series at a hospital. At the Institute of Living, actually, and I go there every 2 weeks, and I teach. I do a presentation that basically teaches mentally ill people how to change their thinking. Okay, and I teach them about this mindfulness. Mindfulness is a matter of realizing first where you're at. You know, I am ill, and I think a certain way. So once you realize that, then you can decide to change. Now, in other words, I'm going to say that I don't want to think negative all the time. I want to be positive. I want to change that, but I'm having trouble doing that. My brain is so used to being negative. And so I help them, teach them how to change their thinking. Cognitive therapy, mindfulness together helps you to do that. And then once you learn to do that, you practice it. I show them a music video, and in the music video is maybe you've heard it, this is the best day of my life. Well, the story is of a dog who wants to be adopted, and so he goes through this activity and decides that this is the best day of his life. Well, people understand that. People in the psych ward, when they see that, they feel good, and they understand, surprisingly, they understand the concept here, the changing and then deciding and then changing to feel good for that day. For this day is the best day of my life. And that's very important to them to feel good.
That's so it's like you're planting into them seeds of change,
Right.
seeds of changing their thinking and being aware, and therefore cutting back on years and years of negative thinking. And,
Well, see, that's the big thing. For years and years, doctors and whatnot did not inform their patients of the process, okay? But now they have learned that if the patient knows, first of all, that they are ill and what the circumstances of that illness is, and that they have negative thinking, when they understand those things, then they can contribute to making things better, changing their thinking, feeling better, change your thinking, practice these, changing your thinking. And so when they realize the process and they get into the process of change, then it's much more beneficial to them than just, a doctor telling you or giving you medication or whatever. So that's a big, one thing that has been, as a matter of fact, they call it mega cognitive therapy.
well, it must be really gratifying to be able to teach these people what you've learned for yourself and to give back to the younger generation too.
Oh yeah.
Now, the one last thing I didn't want to just cover mental illness too, because I know that there are other parts of you that are really that really help you. You're a writer, you keep a journal, and you're a photographer. So why don't you tell me a little bit about that?
Well, I had written a few poems early on in my life, going back to the 80s, which were very important to me concerning my parents and my life at that time. But when I was in the hospital, for 4 months in a VA hospital, and I started a journal, and just writing anything, an expression, and that's the big thing that we talk about when I talk to mentally, when patients, expression is huge. You need to express, even if it's negative. You start with negative, it doesn't matter. I mean, so you can, once you realize that you have a negative expression, then you can work on changing it to a positive expression to feel better. But, so I do journalism, I get in photography, I mostly landscape photography, animals. I love the birds, take pictures of birds, deer, all kinds of animals, and I blow them up. I also do monuments, military monuments, World War II, Vietnam. I mean, I have a collection, okay? And so that's a big thing. And of course, this volunteering that we talked about, that's very important to me also.
So with your photography, have you traveled all over the country and taken pictures and
Well, I haven't been all over the country, but I have run into some interesting sculptures and whatnot in different places. I have pictures of a partisan's sculpture that used to be on Boston Common, now is in Boston, but it's been moved. I have pictures of the Liberty Monument, which is in New Jersey, on the alongside the Hudson River near the Statue of Liberty. I have a sculpture of a Vietnam nurse and 2 soldiers that was upstate New York near Bear Mountain. I run into these different things, and I have, like I said, a collection of them.
would you say that it's like a passion for you, that something that really drives you to want to create and express yourself?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I actually started with sunrises because early in my recovery, I couldn't sleep, so I would head out to the sunrise where it would be in Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts. And I just love the process of going out and watching the sky change from black to dark blue to light blue, and then the reds and the oranges. And I just love that whole experience. And the whole experience to me is an experience of renewal, of renaissance. And it's very meaningful to me. I haven't been lately because of the weather, but
Right.
come spring, that's where I'm going to be going.
Yeah, that's great. Well, we only have about a minute or so left, so if, is there anything that you would like to tell people who are struggling with these issues, that you could help them in some
What
way?
I tell the people is that the light of hope is both outside and inside, but more importantly, it's inside. It's inside here, and so to get to that and understand that and to express that. That's the big thing. Express that inner person that you learn to be, and that renaissance of being is very important. And to be happy with that. Be happy with yourself.
Okay, thank you very much, Ken, for being on the show, and
You're welcome.
and I want to thank Jeff Hansen for doing the camera work, and Abigail White, who runs the studio, and so I'm always looking for people to be on the show. We talk about mental health and recovery and so much more than just that. So thank you for watching.